Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great week. Most of the time when I'm working, I don't have a plan. I sometimes will pick a color palette and let that sort of guide my process. And then every once in a while, I will set out with the idea of creating a certain something. And sometimes I stay on track with that, but other times my intuition guides me in a different direction. And today that is the case. I started this painting with the idea that I might create a whimsical landscape of sorts. And then as I was going along, my intuition guided me in a completely different direction. I really like how this nickel azo yellow reacts with most of the paints that you added to. And I thought that it would be a great addition to this opera pink to create sort of a sunset, sunrise type of sky. But I do think that I went a little overboard with the opera pink. It's a color I really like, but it's a little bit too much right now. And I wanted my sky to look more sunsetty or sunrising. And it just, I don't know, it looks a little bit too pink. So I don't know. I'm kind of just applying more paint underneath it, being a little bit careful not to get too close to the pink. And I'm gonna sort of see how I feel, but like I said before, I started off with the idea that this would turn out to be a potential whimsical landscape, and the more I'm adding my colors, the less I'm feeling that. And that's okay. If my intuition wants to guide me in a different direction, I'm usually very okay with that. And I am okay with that in this instance as well. I love this green gold because, like the nickel azo yellow, it does tend to have some really neat reactions to other colors. And so adding it next to the blue and letting it touch the blue, it tends to bleed into that blue and it creates some really neat effects. I let my layer of paint dry, and after having another look at it, I really wasn't feeling the landscape anymore. So I decided to turn it into a neurographic art painting. And I'm actually really happy that I did because I'm very happy with the final results. And I am excited to let you see it. As I've mentioned before in a number of my neurographic art videos, I tend to do neurographic art in my own specific way, and that simply means that I don't follow the rules of neurographic art. I tend to prefer to create in a more intuitive way, and I find that rules are hindering for me. So I prefer to just sort of go with the flow and create in my own way. What I do use from neurographic art is the part of the process where they create lines, and where those lines intersect, I round off those areas. And so that's the part that I borrow from neurographic art, and from there forward, I just sort of do my own thing. I also really love circles. So circles tend to find their way in a lot of my artwork. And if I'm doing a neurographic art piece, there are very often circles in my piece as well. Along with the lines I just finished creating, I also, like I said, use the neurographic art process where you look for lines that intersect, like the lines that are intersecting here, and I basically turn that X that's in the middle into a more rounded area. So instead of having sharp corners that where the lines intersect, I have a rounded corner or a rounded edge, if you will. I never really know how to say that properly, but if you follow along with my process, you'll see what I mean. So I just start off by drawing in those little rounded shapes, and then I come in with my paintbrush and I start to color in those areas. I really love to work with a paintbrush when I'm coloring in these sections because it goes a lot faster than just using my fountain pen. I used to work with my fountain pen, and I still will if I'm working on covering areas that are a little bit more small and require more precision, I guess. But when I'm working covering bigger areas, it's just so much faster for me to work with a brush pen. So that's why I pulled out my brush pen, and I'm gonna use it to cover most of the areas that I've drawn in. Another neat thing about using a brush pen rather than using a marker over watercolor paper in particular is that I don't have to worry about ruining the applicator because it's like a brush. So it's made to work for a number of different surfaces, and it works actually quite well over watercolor paper. Now I'm coming in with my extra fine tip black pen, and I'm going to start drawing in some vertical lines. In order to make this easier for myself, I have taken the time to use a ruler to create some guides. So I create these guides by simply putting one line from using the ruler, and then that helps me sort of train my eye to following that line, and it usually will prevent me from starting to go a little bit more slanted or crooked. My lines are not perfectly straight, but I actually prefer to create organic lines like this. I do, however, want to control them slightly and prevent them from being like too slanted or wonky, and so that's why I use the guides for this purpose. And I really only want to create those vertical lines in some of the areas of the painting because I want to reserve some open space where I'll do some other type of work. And so you'll see as I go along that my painting continues to develop. I am, like I said, or like I've said many times, I'm very intuitive when I paint. So my decisions come to me as I'm painting. There is no real set plan. Typically, it's all about going with the flow and figuring things out as I go along. The vertical lines I've added, as well as the stippling, have helped to give the painting a little bit more dimension. And now I'll add some iridescent paint to add some contrast. I've put a little bit of gesso in this little cap, and I'm coming in with a dotting tool to add some dots around some of the circles that are inside my principal shapes, and the white is going to add another element of contrast. If it looks like I'm bouncing between doing different types of marks, that's exactly what I'm doing. I do this, number one, because my decisions are basically very intuitive. So I don't have a set plan. I'm working moment by moment, letting my gut really help me decide what I'm going to do next. And so when I was done adding the gold a little while ago, I felt like I wanted more light contrast, and that's what I went and did. I added those white dots. And then when I was done adding the white dots, I felt like I wanted to add a little bit more gold. So it's not, I guess, all that easy for me to explain from the perspective that it's not about having a plan. It's about making the decisions as I go along. And so I would like to invite you, when you're painting, to listen to what your intuition is guiding you to do and see how that works for you. Sometimes I'll make a decision, and once I apply what it is my gut has been sort of nudging me to do, I'm not necessarily sure it was the right thing, but I give myself time to sit with it before I actually take it away. Or if it's a very strong nudge that nope, I didn't want that, I can simply either wipe the paint away or lightly brush it so that it becomes lighter. It's really a very, I want to say, heartfelt process, because it almost is like that. It's a heartfelt process from the perspective that every decision is a decision that comes from deep down inside of me. And some of it comes from the fact that I have done it in a previous painting and I really like the results, and so I wanted to repeat it in this painting. And I mean, that's what intuition is. Intuition is based on experience. It's based on, things that we've done in the past that our body is nudging us to either repeat or to avoid doing again. And it comes to us so quickly that we don't really have time to think about it. And that's kind of what I like about intuition, or painting in an intuitive way. I don't get stuck in my head. My decisions get made pretty quickly. Working with intuition is also about learning to trust my own inner guidance. And as I'm learning to trust my own inner guidance, I'm learning to trust in the fact that I have the ability to finish and complete projects in a way that I feel very satisfied in completing them. When I trust in my ability to be able to complete projects in a satisfactory way, I also develop confidence in my creative skills. All of this, of course, has to come with the idea that along the way, I am going to make decisions that may not sit well with me, that I could call quote-unquote mistakes, but that really all those decisions have brought me is a greater knowing of what it is I like to do and how I like to do things. And it helps me know me and my own creative style better. And with these final little pen strokes, I feel like my painting is complete. Removing tape from watercolor paper can be a bit tricky, It's not difficult, but if you don't do it the right way, it can pull the paper off with the tape. And so what I like to do is, first of all, when I'm applying my tape, I try to make sure I don't burnish the tape too much on the paper so that it doesn't adhere completely. And then when I'm pulling the tape off, I pull slowly and I pull gently away from the paper. I'm really happy with how this little painting turned out, and it is actually quite a nice surprise because, like I said, initially I thought I'd be working on a whimsical little landscape, and in the end, neurographic art is exactly what this background called for. Oftentimes, one painting project leads into inspiration for another painting project, and already having worked on this painting, I am feeling inspired to create other paintings using different colors and maybe recreating some of the designs that I used, but not completely replicating this painting. I think this painting is unique and beautiful, and I'm super happy I was able to create it here for you today. I hope my little neurographic art project also sparked some inspiration in you. Thank you again so much for making the time to join me on this journey. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy creating!